Okay, so we're going to do something a little different for this week's lesson. We're going to take everything that I played in the intro and we're going to talk through all of it in this video. We're actually going to, I didn't split it into two parts, so in this video we're going to talk through all of it. Now I'm not going to get super specific about every little piece that was played. I think for something like this it would be a little bit too much. But I do want to talk through where all of those notes came from in each part so that you can use this information and start to work this into your own playing when you improvise. Now I did tab out everything that I played and I made that available for premium members. So you can get that as well as the on-screen tab viewer, which is interactive. It's got the video and tab at the same time. You can highlight sections, you can slow down the playback, loop it, and all of those things. You can also get the MP3 jam track for this. So if you want those extra learning materials for this lesson, you can get those by going to activemelody.com, go to the weekly lessons page, and do a search for EP469. Okay, so this song that we're going to be playing is in D minor. And the first thing I want to do is I want you to just listen to the jam track, just the first part of it without the guitar. I want you to hear what the keyboard is doing so that we can start to copy that with some of our guitar licks. So you can hear that the keyboard part is going. And what that is a D minor. When I was playing that, I was playing a D minor and then I played a C and then back to the D minor. So on the guitar, and actually when I played it, I didn't play a full D minor chord. I was just playing the two notes out of it. It's really more of a harmonized third. These two notes. And then those two notes out of the C major chord. So let's look at what those notes are in the guitar. Its middle finger would be on the 8th fret 2nd string, ring fingers on the 7th fret 3rd string. And then the other part of that would be just strings 2 and 3 on the 5th fret. So you go back and forth between this and this. Now let's talk about what this is. These two notes are just two notes in your D minor chord if we were playing the A minor shape here. So if you think about your chord shapes, there's your A minor shape. These three fingers are making that. If we only played strings 2 and 3 out of that shape, that's where that is coming from in my head. That's how I got there. Now this is an interesting thing that happens going to this C major chord. Now it'd be easy to get lost in theory and talking about this. I don't want to overwhelm you with this, but just know this. Here's your like little takeaway that you can use in a very practical way. Whenever you're playing a song that's got a minor chord, especially if it's hanging out for a while on a chord, you can play the major chord that's 2 frets down this way towards the head of your guitar. So in this case, we'd have a D minor chord. You go to 2 frets down, play the major chord of whatever that chord, I should have said that. The major chord that's 2 frets down. So it'd be a C chord. And you can vamp between that minor chord and the major chord that's 2 frets down. Now there's some theory behind that, obviously. There's more to it than just positioning. But that's how a real practical way you can think about it. And obviously it would work in any position that you're playing a minor chord. It doesn't have to just be that A minor position. You could come up here and go. So that's the D minor using the E minor shape. Now the reason that works is within your D minor scale or your D natural minor scale are those 3 notes. That would be an E, a C, and a G. Within that D natural minor scale, those 3 notes exist. So it would make sense then if you played those 3 notes as a chord, even though it's a C major chord, the notes are in the natural minor scale anyway. So that's why it works in a minor setting. All right, so let's listen to this first part that the guitar plays. So basically all I'm doing for all of that is I'm going back and forth between what would be the D minor and the C major. And I do it in different ways, sort of different timing, but the general gist is... So it doesn't, here's what's cool, is it doesn't matter if I land on the D minor part or the C major part. So I can go land on the C major, or I can go land on the D minor. Either way works. So I would encourage you to take that jam track and just play around with it. You can play what I played if you want. Obviously you'd have tab to that as a premium member. But even if you don't have the jam track, even if you're just watching this video and you're not a premium member, record yourself playing a D minor chord on piano, on guitar, or whatever, and then just experiment with different ways to do that. and go back and forth and start to kind of create a little bit of a groove using that technique. It's very cool. And now that you know how to do it and know that you can go from that minor chord to that major chord that's 2 frets down, you can do that in any situation where you've got a minor chord. Now the third time through I went like this. So I came up here. Let me show you what I'm playing, and then you'll see that this is what we already have talked about. So I've got, we're still in strings 2 and 3. So I'm up here on the 10th fret, playing those 2 strings. And then I go back to that same shape we were just using. In this case, it would be 9th fret, 3rd string, 8th fret, 2nd string. And then back down to that C major chord. Now what's going on here? I jumped out of my little area that we had been in and came up to this. Why did this work? It's the same thing. I was thinking about, where else do I have a D minor chord? Where else do I have a C major chord? Oh yeah, I've got a D minor chord up here, right? I've got a C major chord right here, using the E shape. So if I was just playing strings 2 and 3 out of that D minor chord, it's here, and then my C major chord is here. So that's why that works, and you can see it's doing the same thing. I'm just going back and forth between that minor chord and that major chord. All right, so now we're going to get into some single string lead lines. Let me play the next little part and we'll talk it through. Okay, so that lick started off, we were still in D minor. And these notes that I'm playing are from that D natural minor scale. Then the song switches to a G minor. And I play this. Believe it or not, even though I started with a D minor and then the song goes to the G minor, the notes I was playing were coming from the same scale. So think about that. You got the D minor and then you've got a G minor. It would be like a minor 1 chord and its minor 4 chord, if you can think of it that way. But the notes I was playing were coming from the same place. And now this is going to be confusing to some people, so if this confuses you, just ignore what I'm saying here. But this is all coming from the F major scale. Believe it or not, F major scale gives you these chords. So the D minor chord and that G minor chord are both chords in the chord family of F. So technically speaking, this song would be in the key of F. You wouldn't think of it that way. You wouldn't even describe it to someone that way. If you were just jamming with somebody, you would say it's in D minor. But the chords are all from the F family. So those of you that know your modes, you know what I'm talking about. So actual fact, that would be like D Aeolian mode, which would be your 6th mode, and then the G minor would be your 2nd mode, which would be Dorian mode. So by playing the F major scale, you're playing both G Dorian and you're playing D Aeolian, but nobody thinks of it that way. I'm only telling you that just to let you know what's going on. But that's not how we really think about it when we're improvising. We don't really think, oh, you know, there's a G minor, I'm going to play the F major scale. You're going to get confused if you start doing that. But that is what's happening, and what does happen when you're improvising is your fingers will follow these same interval patterns and shapes that you've learned. And so this is why it's important to learn your major scale in different spots. And I actually did a 2-part, it's actually a lesson on modes. I'll put up the first part where I go through the major scale in 5 positions. For those of you that want to learn that, I'll put that up on the screen. You can check that out in more detail if you want. But I don't want you to get overwhelmed and think, oh great, now before I learn anything else I gotta sit and learn the major scale in 5 positions. That's probably a bad idea to do that, because you'll get lost, you'll start doing that, and then you'll get distracted and do something else. So instead, here's what I want you to learn. If you're kind of new to the major scale, or maybe you know it but you don't know it super well, pay attention to this. This will be a good one to focus on. Notice I'm playing the F chord, but I'm using the C shape. I'm only playing the F chord because we're playing out of that position. We don't actually play an F chord in any of this. But I want you to get this major scale in this position. So when I play the major scales, I connect them to chord shapes out of the cage system. It makes it easier for me that way. So starting on the 5th string where my pinky is, that's the F note. That should be your clue as to how to get to this scale anywhere. Now just go up to there, and then I'll go back down. So just learn that, just that little piece there, because you'll find yourself, once you get comfortable with that, you'll find yourself, whether the song is major or minor, you'll start using that shape. Your fingers will start going into positions. They kind of know what the intervals are, and they start to kind of find their place. When I came up with the jam track for this, I didn't have any idea what I was going to play for a lead. And when I played the lead, I had no idea that F major scale was even part of this. I wasn't thinking that way at all. I was just noodling around, playing around with stuff, shapes and patterns that I already know. And it wasn't until after the fact that I realized, oh, this is F major. And now I see why it works, but I didn't think about that when I was improvising, and you probably won't. Okay, so I played this for the D part. That was the first little part. Now you know where it's coming from. And then for that G minor, we stayed in the same area here, playing the same notes from that same scale, and walked right up it like that. Now I did slide into this. I slid into this note. It's the same note that I just showed you though. I find it, you get a different sound, get a different vibe when you slide into it. Alright, so then the chords in the song go back to the D minor, and I played that C major triad. I just went right back into it and played. And I don't know this, I got this from, that sounds like a Steely Dan song or something, Michael McDonald, something from the 80s, I think. Somebody out there will know what that is. But I was just vamping on the same little thing that I was showing you. So then I went and slid down into this. Now this is where I went into, in my head, I went into D minor pentatonic scale. I was thinking, whatever you think of as that. I think of this as pattern 4, the bottom part of pattern 4. This little area you have between, in this case for D minor, it'd be 3rd fret and the 5th fret. 6th string, 5th string, 4th string. I slid down into that. And so that's another thing, why, some of you are probably wondering, well, do I have to play the D natural minor scale for this? No, you could just play the D minor pentatonic scale. That's totally cool too. There, either one's going to work. The same notes are actually in both scales. The natural minor scale just has some extra notes. It has 2 extra notes that the minor pentatonic scale is leaving out. But it's a good thing to kind of go, I think, to go back and forth between them whenever you can. All right, so now an interesting thing happens. I don't know why I did this in the jam track. I heard it, but I went back to the G part of the song, but this time I played a G major chord. It was actually a G7. So I have that major, the third interval is now major. And so when I played the lead part, I was hinting at that third interval in the chord. And then, let me show you what I'm doing there. So I'm thinking about G using the E shape here. So I'm starting on that 5th fret, 4th string, do a hammer on, this is on the 3rd string, from the 3rd fret to the 4th fret, and you can see I'm just building the G chord, right? Our G chord using the E shape. And then played strings 2 and 1 out of that chord. And then slide up to the 8th fret, 2nd string. That's a classic blues lick. You can get a lot of mileage out of just that one lick. And then, so now what I did was I went from, if we're thinking pentatonics now, I went from like my G minor pentatonic pattern 1 up into pattern 2. So, and then came down to this note and slid into that lick, which you know that, right, from your pattern 2, your minor pentatonic. It's in everything. It's in every blues thing. And slid back down into pattern 1. This is on the 3rd string, but we go down to the 5th fret, 3rd fret, and then the last time I pushed it sharp a little bit, and that's to hint at that major note. So we have, and then I came back up to pattern 2, and that's just another kind of blues triplet thing that I hear quite a bit, and it's played chromatically. So I'm starting on the 8th fret 2nd string, and again I'm in pattern 2 of your minor pentatonic scale, but by playing that note I'm going into the major because that's the 3rd interval of your chord, right? So this would be 8th fret, 6th fret 1st string, we hammer onto the 7th fret, then we go 8, 9, 10. And then back down to that 8th fret 2nd string. Now the song goes back to your D minor chord here, and I play. That's just D minor pentatonic scale. So I went into, this would be pattern 5 of your minor pentatonic scale. 2nd string, we come up to the 10th fret, slide into it, and then 8th fret 1st string. And then I slide it back down to the 8th fret 2nd string, 6th fret 2nd string. So, and then I went back to that little C chord, right? And then I came up here and played this minor pentatonic scale lick. This would be right out of pattern 1 of your D minor pentatonic scale. So it's a full bend on that 12th fret 3rd string, and then we play the 10th fret 1st string, and there's another bend, another full bend on the 2nd string. This is on the 13th fret, and you can see where these notes are coming from. It's just D minor pentatonic scale pattern 1. And then I concluded that lick with that 12 on the 3rd string, 10 on the 2nd string, 10 on the 3rd, and then 12 on the 4th string. Now the song goes back to the G, and I played. Let me show you this lick. This is a great little lick that you can connect to your chord shapes. So I'm thinking G major, and I played this. Now this is all played on the 4th string and the 2nd string. That whole walk down, and I'm picking on the 4th string, I'm plucking with my ring finger on the 2nd string. So I slide into the 9th fret 4th string, 8th fret 2nd string, slide that down 2 frets, and now we're going to put both fingers in the same fret, 5th fret, 3rd fret. Connect this. I connect it to my G7. That's what I was picturing, was a G7 chord. That's using the C7 shape. So anywhere that I can see that, I just play strings 4 and 2 out of it. And you could slide that down 2 frets. And then you can do the same thing. Picture your G chord using the E shape. And within that, you've got the 5th fret and the 3rd fret. And you get this nice 7 sound. So you have. And then the song goes from that G up to an A7, and I played basically the same thing I did for the G. So it's the same kind of idea. So we're basically just playing that A triad, hammering onto it though with our middle finger. And then sliding into pattern 2 of the A, there'll be the A minor pentatonic scale. And this would all be in pattern 2. It's hammering on to the 3rd interval of the chord, which would be the 9th fret 1st string. 10th fret 1st string, back to the 9th fret, and then 10th fret 2nd string. And then the song goes back to the D minor. And I just walked right down minor pentatonic scale pattern 1. I started here on that 10th fret 1st string with vibrato, and then 13, 10, 12, 10, 12. And then I think to conclude it, I came back into the way that we started. And I can't remember exactly how many of those I did, but I came back into that position. So that's the entire solo. I realize there's a lot of parts and this is like a big data dump, but if you really kind of break it down, there's a couple of ideas that you can walk away with. One is the minor chord to its major chord, finding that major triad that lives within your minor scale and taking advantage of that, whether you be playing lead or rhythm. And the other was playing those notes from that major scale in one position, but we're hitting 2 minor scales. We're hitting the D natural minor and the G Dorian. We're hitting both of those scales by playing in one position. You know, there's obviously other things, but those are the big takeaways. All right, and if you're not a premium member yet, I would encourage you to look into it. I have over 10 years worth of in-depth lessons like this, hundreds and hundreds of them. If you're serious about learning how to improvise, it's a great system for that, if I do say so myself. So you can check out Active Melody and go through all the lessons. The part 1 videos are free in all of them, so you can go look through them and just sort of see if it's a right fit for you. Otherwise, we'll see you next week for something new.